Minister, leading the National Computer Incident Response Team, CERT, as a manager. Join me in welcoming Symmetria and our panelists to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, we're almost ready.
You want to sit here?
Okay. In a world where cybersecurity threats knows no borders, it is imperative for regions to come together to strengthen their competitive defenses. The Caribbean, with its unique sets of challenges and opportunities, has recognized the importance of incident handling and as a vital component in safeguarding its digital space. This panel, aptly titled Incident Handling in the Caribbean, promises to provide a comprehensive understanding of the strategies and approaches adopted in the region. Again, my name is Symmetria McKinney, and I am the National CERT Manager. Here with me today is Mr. Gulfrey Sterling. Colonel Gulfrey Sterling, make sure I get it right, served in the Jamaican Defense Force for more than 24 years in a number of staff and command roles. 15 of those years he spent in various ICT and cyber-related roles. During this time, he worked with MITRE Corporation and the United States Southern Command to create the Caribbean Information Sharing Network, leading its technical working group from 1998 to 2007. He led or participated in the project teams that were responsible for all major technology changes in the JDF between 1998 and 2019, culminating in the drafting of the Jamaican Defense Force Strategic Defense Review in 2018. Welcome, Colonel Sterling. Along with Colonel Sterling, we have Mr. Angus Smith. Angus is the head of the Trinidad and Tobago Cybersecurity Incident Response Team for the last 8 years. He has been involved in cybersecurity and ITC for over 20 years. He is responsible for managing a dynamic team of professionals to address incident response and institutionalizing cyber threat intelligence and conduct cybersecurity vulnerability assessments at a national level. Angus has been instrumental in the development of National Cybersecurity Program for Trinidad and Tobago, implementing Trinidad and Tobago's Cybersecurity Incident Response Team. He has led national critical information infrastructure assessments and is also involved in a number of national projects focusing on cybersecurity elements of these projects. And finally, Mrs. Mariana McPherson, and the other lady in the room with me, is the Cybersecurity Director of National Data Management Authority of Guyana. She has over 5 years providing leadership in the development of the NDMA, that's the National Data Management Authority, cybersecurity program and governance structure in accordance with the mandated to ensure cybersecurity. This includes defining how security risks are managed, developing policies, advocating for policy changes in support of new initiatives, required changes, and enhancement. Welcome to our panelists, and welcome all of you to this panel. In the CARICOM nations, there's a total of about 13 CARICOM nations presented. However, presented here with us, we only have 4 established CERTs. In your opinion, and this question is for each of you, What do you think are some of the challenges that is preventing or deterring maybe the development of certs in the region, and by extension, developing the regional cybersecurity posture?
Okay, so nice question, morning everyone. And first of all, I'd just like to thank the Bahamas government for inviting me, especially Symmetry here from the state of Bahamas, and to the OAS for inviting me here and to speak on this panel. As you can see, yes, there are only 4 functional certs really in the English-speaking Caribbean, and that is a bit of a challenge in the context of dealing with incident response on a Caribbean level. The challenges may be in the context of most of the countries here will have some form of reason or strategy that caused the implementation of a incident response team, whether it's from a need based on threats that has happened within their jurisdiction, or let's say a national strategy in the cases of both Bahamas, myself, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica. You need a structured framework in the context of having an incident response team. You also have to have the drivers in the context of your leadership. They must want to have implemented some form of incident response or response for cybersecurity, or to manage cybersecurity, in essence, a cybersecurity framework. That is fundamental, in essence, getting that starting point to create or to enable just an incident response team. It's a quick win in the context of this. In the context of Trinidad and Tobago, we could say we used it as a quick win in the implementation of our strategy, but there has to be some form of driver. In some countries, it may, as I said before, might have been an incident, or just the general need to provide that cybersecurity support for the infrastructure, or maybe digital transformation, which is now happening across the region.
One of the challenges that I have seen is that some governmental stakeholders are not really au fait with the challenges or the impact of a cybersecurity risk or a major attack on the country. And as a result, they see cybersecurity as one of those foreign languages that is for the techies, and there's usually a challenge in getting the message across as to the importance of the establishment of a CERT, what a CERT can do, and how we can benefit and leverage from other territories in terms of the collaboration and the sharing. In the Guyana experience, we do have a CERT, and our CERT is functional, but it's seen as being part and parcel of the National Data Management Authority, where the CERT performs one major function, and that is of incident response. But then the other functions that are typically in an established CERT is more or less part and parcel of the cybersecurity division, which deals with the monitoring of the network, the vulnerability assessments, risk assessments, and the other policy and strategy aspects of cybersecurity. So that has been our experience in Guyana.
Good morning. I would like to take just a couple seconds to again echo the sentiments of being grateful for being here, and thanks to the OAS for their continued championing of this cause, and the Bahamas CERT for their continued drive towards maturity. I want to take a different tact from my 2 colleagues here and to look at the fact that the Caribbean nations are small economies, and as such they look to regional bodies to drive a lot of the development. Cybersecurity is one of those, and when you look at the CARICOM cybersecurity and crime plan, it is a commendable step. And on the plus side, it really presented a broad framework within which cybersecurity could be adopted and strengthened, and it facilitates the collaboration among nations. But on the negative side, I believe it lacks specificity in terms of the specific things that need to be done by nation states, particularly the smaller ones, as well as timelines. Additionally, while it stresses the need for governments to interact, there is a big gap in terms of recognizing academia, private enterprise, as well as non-governmental organizations in driving that push. And so that may lead to these entities feeling left out. Because if we're really going to drive incident response within our cybersecurity maturity push as nation states within CARICOM, all stakeholders must be on board.
Thank you. I want to further that question and piggyback on the question that I asked. While we are giving opinion on regionally what are some of the challenges we have with improving our cybersecurity posture, I want to make this more specific to you, Trinidad, Guyana, and Jamaica. What are some of your personal challenges now that you have an actual CERT and an agency? What are some of the challenges that you're facing, and what do you see yourself doing? What are some of the solutions to those challenges that you're working on currently?
So I'll take it first, Agnes. The biggest challenge we have really is cooperation and collaboration. There is within the Jamaican experience a trust deficit between government and private enterprise that has to be overcome. And this presents the biggest challenge. Additionally, what we find is that within government entities, private enterprise, and the general citizenry, there is a significant failure to take basic cybersecurity steps to improve cyber hygiene, and this presents significant challenge. Additionally, the matter of reputation and image and the fear of being labeled as a victim prevents a lot of persons and entities from reporting the incidents. And so, as an institution of government designed to really manage the cybersecurity ecosystem, the biggest challenge is really just bringing those persons on board and raising the cyber hygiene and participation of all concerned.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to take that question?
Yes, from the Guyana standpoint, we had faced the challenge of government entities reporting in a timely manner any incidents. How we are dealing with it right now is that we're using a kind of a big stick approach, in that we would have collated information that is now being brought to the attention of our government for them to mandate the reporting of incidents. And this has happened because some government agencies may have suffered negative impact from a cyber incident. And when we do investigate, we recognize that certain basic things are not in place. Like, for example, simple things as backing up data, ensuring you have a running antivirus solution. Those are basic things. So how we're dealing with it now is from the top level being mandated. Now, one of the challenges we face is that of the skill set. So in Guyana, we do not have any educational entity that supports the cybersecurity training. And what we do is that we have to employ persons just out of university who might have done a degree in computer science that had nothing to do with cybersecurity, and we train them to operate in cybersecurity. None of the government agencies in our country has a skilled cybersecurity personnel. And so that's another challenge, because how do we get the agencies to say, okay, these are the things you must put in place to ensure the security of your data, when the very resource that they depend on to put those things in place have no knowledge. So for us, that's the biggest challenge, ensuring that the persons within the public sector and the private sector are properly educated and have the kind of knowledge that they need to secure the environment that they operate within.
I want to commend you on your initiative of hiring college students and upskilling college students to work in cybersecurity. I think that's commendable. Angus?
Yeah, so in the context of the Trinidad experience, some of the challenges my colleagues expressed are some of the same: resources, in the context of skilled personnel, having access to that, even having just awareness, just general awareness on cyber hygiene. Still the same kind of challenges. Even you have your IT, in terms of the IT persons understanding that they need to kind of pay attention to what they do, how they do it, and do it at a more efficient level, configuration management, backing up. Those things are fundamental in the context of having a secure environment. Now, that is very important. We have looked at it. One of the keys also from an incident response perspective, and us as a CERT, trust is important. We started off as, in the beginning it was a CERT, who knows you, who would be aware of you as a CERT, then you have to build trust. Trust is trust can be built based on the level of service that you provide. What you provide, the quality of it, and your engagement with your constituency. That's really important. And I think that's one of the things that has helped us over the time period, is us just providing a high quality of service and ensuring that the customers, in essence, our constituency, is very much satisfied. So that would help you in the context of, gaining that foothold in the environment.
Thank you. Talking about trust, I want to move on to talk a little bit about collaboration. And what are the insights into the level of collaboration and cooperation among Caribbean nations in the realm of incident handling and cybersecurity, and how these efforts align with regional security goals?
I can. Yes. I find that the Caribbean nations have really benefited from the work of the CERT Americas, in that they have been providing assistance in information relating to cyber attacks, training, and even facilitating networking events like this symposium. One of the things we have observed is that most of the information is primarily in Spanish, and most of the persons with a knowledge resource is primarily Spanish-speaking persons. And so we would really like to see the English-speaking Caribbean come on board to collaborate more. One of the initiatives I have observed that has happened in 2016 is that there was the Caribbean Security and Cybercrime Action Plan that was developed, and was developed with experts from CTU, that is Caribbean Telecommunications Union, the Commonwealth Secretariat, the OAS, as well as CARICOM Impasse. One of the things that I've observed is that it was aimed at the same regional and international cooperation and collaboration as it relates to incident response and the like. But today, years after, we haven't seen much implementation work as it relates to that. So I'll use this opportunity as well, because I do know that the OAS played a critical role in this, to more or less see how best we can lean on assistance to help to make this action plan that we work so hard to put together a reality in the Caribbean. We do benefit from all the things, but I'll leave my other colleagues, where is that?
I'll go next. So I'll have a little different spin on it in the context of my experience, in the context, or the Trinidad and Tobago CIT's experience. Agreed. The CCCAP, in essence, is really it's supposed to be the foundation for cybersecurity management in the Caribbean, because it's a CARICOM vehicle. That being said, and I would echo the sentiments of Godfrey, that it needs to be developed or implemented a little bit more efficiently. That being said, we have had an experience in the context of Trinidad and Tobago's CERT with the other entities, countries. Part of me being here is because of my relationship with Symmetry and the Bahamas CERT, in terms of sharing knowledge, sharing that development experience, helping them to get to the point where they are now. A little small contribution, but we help them in that context. We try to reach out to those CERTs in the region that we know, or if we have to share our experience, and to try to help, in essence, mentor those CERTs or those countries who have an incident response capability or trying to develop. So it's informal in essence. For most part, we have tried to do it. Once we hear about an incident, we try to reach out. We try to reach out about various countries, try to treat with the incidents with them, provide that help, offer assistance. So it's really informal, but we need to have more of that done across the country so that we could kind of synchronize our efforts to deal with incident response. So that is really, you know, one of the things that I think is required.
Thank you for that. Godfrey, do you want to take that question?
I will echo what Angus has said, and certainly us here on the platform, we talk outside of symposium and events like this. But when we go back home, having come here, having gathered, having had a rich discourse, we do not necessarily reach out. And oftentimes, the only way you're going to reach out is if you know who you're calling, you know who is behind an email, so that when you do say, look, I have seen this, or I have this problem, you understand what the response is going to be and who you're dealing with. And I don't believe enough of that happens. So us here really probably have to take the mantle and say to the other countries, you know, this is what we do, this is how we work, this is how we're able to achieve synergies, and this is what we suggest that you can do. Oftentimes you find, especially when incidents happen, companies are contracted, usually extra-regional companies. And so you do not understand exactly what happened, you do not understand what was done to resolve it, you do not appreciate the next steps to build back stronger. As opposed to if we can say to each other, this is what we're facing, and try to work on it ourselves and then bring people in, but we're aware of what is taking place, we will improve the ability to respond and better share the lessons learned so that we can mitigate the impact of the same incident occurring in another territory.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, all of you. I have a thought there that really is a question. We're talking about informal information sharing and communication, collaboration and cooperation. And we recognize that there is some barrier to formally creating a process for us to share information with one another, specifically on incident handling. What do you think should be the next steps? Because I know you said we probably should tell everyone else. Mm-hmm. But formally, what do you think should be our work or our next steps to formalizing mechanisms for sharing information related to incident handling or otherwise?
So Angus and I started a discussion yesterday, and one of the things we have committed to do once we return home is to draft a memorandum of understanding / information sharing, information agreement, have our lawyers go through it so that we're not breaking any rules locally, and then we're going to share that. Then it's on to our ministries of foreign affairs to ensure that it happens on a formal basis. But while that happens, and while we understand the pace at which governments move, we have to take that initiative to say, Angus, this is what I'm seeing on your constituents network, or Godfrey, this is what I'm seeing. And if we start there, then hopefully we can convince our political masters to appreciate the gravity of the situation, the necessary collaboration for response, because as the region, we are prone and vulnerable to the same challenges. And so what will impact a network in Trinidad, as we saw with the Massey group, they had a problem, and a couple months later, their subsidiary in Jamaica was hit by the same problem. Now, this, because we knew about what happened with Massey, we were better able to assist with what happened with HD Upward. But this doesn't happen often enough or among enough partners to make it a regional setting at this point.
So just quickly I want to add that trust factor is very important. Whether you have a formalized sharing or informal sharing, and the trust really, the informal sharing really depends on the trust, and as Godfrey said, you need to know who you're speaking to. But at the end of the day is recognizing that the value of the national CERT, its role in the context of the ecosystem of dealing with cybersecurity incidents in the Caribbean, and all the territories in essence have an appreciation that that should be the focal point for sharing incident information. And understanding that building that capacity, building that trust and that sharing would only make us a stronger region.
I think going forward for us, the challenge is not so much in terms of us as individual managers of CERT collaborating. I think the challenge is much higher than us. And coming back to the action plan that was done, I know that the ministers of the different territories were involved or were briefed about this, but I'm not certain where we are with that, because going forward, in terms of sharing certain information, you often have to have the go-ahead approval to share such information. And that, I think, is where we really need to have something in place to enable that sharing element.
Okay, thank you. What role do governmental and non-governmental entities play in shaping and implementing incident handling procedures within the Caribbean, and how does their involvement contribute to the regional overall cybersecurity resilience?
I mean, as a government, the role of the government is to create that cybersecurity framework. Understand that at the end of the day, the government has assets to protect, has the citizens to protect, and their information that being said. And the role of the government really is to create that framework, implement the legislation, the rules, the policies that would be required to give that framework its, in essence, authority, power, life in essence, and create the environment. Firstly, foremost, create the environment for incident to function, for having a cert, set up your C-cert in the context, your national C-cert, and then understand that cybersecurity is important across the board. If you want to do digital transformation, if you want to create a system that your citizens will be safe, to develop economic activity, it is all in the government's responsibility towards its citizens to take these actions. And I think that fundamentally is where governments should understand their role in the context of a cybersecurity ecosystem.
Yes, and even taken from Angus' position as well, what we have been doing as a government is that we have created a whole lot of policies that are now being reviewed and are going to be implemented government-wide. Our finance minister had mentioned that as a country, we need to ensure that our cybersecurity posture is improved. And piggybacking on that, what we have begun to do, even as at the National Data Management Authority in Guyana, is that we have started to go into all the different government entities and conduct risk assessments to ensure that the posture is where it should be. So we have identified gaps in many of our agencies, and we have given them a remediation plan as to what they should do in order to more or less improve their posture. And it's now at the stage where by next year, we'll be revisiting those agencies to ensure that they have implemented the different things that we would have suggested. So from a government point of view, we do recognize the importance of cybersecurity, and we are taking strides to ensure that at a minimum, the public sector is protected. We do have some engagements planned with the private sector, but that has not been realized as yet.
Okay.
So both Angus and Mariana, having dealt with the government, the individual, the citizens, they have a responsibility to recognize their role in providing for their own cybersecurity. The presentation that was done by Mr. Anson spoke to, your e-footprint, what it is that you do, your e-behavior, how does it impact? If every individual takes that into a body corporate, then that corporation becomes so much more resilient from a cybersecurity standpoint. That corporation, however, has to invest in the employees, has to invest in the infrastructure, and this can't be a one-time event. So it can't be that, company X got hit, so let us check what we have and then forget about it. It has to be a continuous improvement process throughout how the situation happens. And what this will lead to is a more rich engagement among private sector entities. And so when we see, for example, in Jamaica, what I describe as a burgeoning sector of managed cybersecurity provision companies, there has to be management of that, because not everybody who tells you they can provide you with cybersecurity or incident response capabilities does it. And so that within the corporate sphere has to be there. NGOs also have a role to play, particularly with public education and awareness. They have wider reach sometimes than government in some areas, and they can help to drive that message of cyber hygiene and ensure that the uptake in technology usage is mirrored by responsible behavior and usage of it.
I want to circle back to cooperation a little bit. I know we talk about sharing information, but the four of us here on the stage, we are at different levels of maturity when it comes to our national cert. How can we benefit from each other, specifically surrounding the areas of building capacity and just benefit from the economy of scale, maybe through technology, shared technology? What are some of the suggestions that we collectively on the stage should be considering as it relates to collaboration with one another and benefiting jointly?
So one of the biggest challenge to that, Sumitra, is going to be the fact that as sovereign nations, we all tend to want the same things at the same time. However, we have to also recognize as sovereign nations that within the region, if we try to do everything ourselves, then we end up with a lot of duplication and sometimes very poor implementation. And so if we can recognize our strengths and based on the level of maturity that we are, share our experiences so that the pitfalls are avoided by those who come after us, then we take a step towards that level of maturity. Additionally, we don't all need to get the same resources. We can share how that is used. We can share the output from some of those resources, thereby allowing for a wider cross-section of capabilities and structures that can be leveraged against a common enemy, which is cybercrime. So that would be my take on it.
Angus or Mariana, do you want to take a stab?
Yeah, fundamentally, as I said, it's really about sharing the experiences, sharing your knowledge, sharing your lessons learned, collaborating on that level where even in the conduct of, we have training, we have experiences that you would have, that type of engagement, again, connecting with our partners across the region and actually just sharing that with them, one, in the context of things. That fundamentally will help along the way because, as you rightly said, we all at different levels, we have different experiences, and we may treat with incidents differently. But the goal is really to establish a standard that really across the region, once we treat with an incident, we generally have the same outcome and output from it.
Yeah.
And that would, again, lift the standard across the board.
Yes, I would agree to that. Sharing of information is one of the ways we can begin this journey of collaborating more.
Thank you. I look forward to the day when I can call Angus, Mariana, or Godfrey here and say, hey, I have a training schedule for my team. Invite a few members of your team to join. I look forward to that type of collaboration.
But notwithstanding, that started already, you know. You can ask Godfrey.
I can ask Godfrey.
We have started. So, I mean, unofficially, yes, but it has. And that day might be sooner than you think.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I love to hear it. Moving on to our last question before I take questions from the audience. In the context of incident handling in the Caribbean, what lessons and best practices can be gleaned from the experiences and efforts of various entities within the region, and how can these insights be applied on a broader scale to enhance cybersecurity in the region?
So I believe the biggest lesson that we can all take away from our incident response experience within the English-speaking Caribbean is that entities and individuals alike need to practice better cyber hygiene. And the second is that companies need to resource IT infrastructure and need to invest in their employees. And thirdly, the academic community has to come on board. Persons are not being turned out at the end of a 4-year degree ready for work. And oftentimes there is no follow-on that is available within the region. So we have to become disruptive in that educational sphere where the traditional 3- and 4-year degrees do not remain mandatory. but the certifications and just the talent that people have at whatever level, whether it is at secondary level or persons on the job for 10 years, that we invest in these people at the level they're at and upskill them and try to create a sustainable throughput of qualified personnel.
Yeah, similarly, we have the same challenges in the context of when you go to deal with an incident, you could almost predict what might be the problem. Configuration management, they didn't have it done properly, software applications not implemented properly. And a lot of times you would encounter that. It's just basic hygiene or those simple hygiene that persons need to treat with. And in the context of even trained personnel, that's really a good one in the context of us identifying the right type of person to bring into the space having that trained person who is with the ability to work, with the ability to run to get moving as you employ them. It's really fundamental in having a greater resource and then also having entities, have somebody focus on cybersecurity. I think that's one thing that you would need to find. Most organizations, they don't have anybody who's responsible and really being responsible, not just cybersecurity as a side job in a sense, but that is their day-to-day responsibility, and that I think would help a lot across the region.
And one of the things that many people do not realize is that cybersecurity is a combination of ensuring you have the right people, process, and technology in place. And often the challenge is that the focus is on technology in place, but technology is not the only thing that needs to be in place. And so for organizations, it's important to recognize that as you put technology in place, you need to, as was said earlier, invest in the people, help them to know how to use the technology properly so that it can be properly configured and securely used, and ensure you have proper processes in place to manage the end-to-end use of the technology. Processes that would include, for example, we've had cases where, in Guyana, where an organization had all the latest technology there. They had the latest antivirus software, but nobody was ensuring it was updated on a daily basis. And as simple as that, they faced a cyber incident. And so those are the basic things. So it's about getting back to the basic. Outside of that, my passion, my cry is always the educational aspect. And I believe that in the Caribbean, the educational curriculum for secondary schools needs to be revamped to include cybersecurity. We need to be able to prepare our young people for the jobs of today and tomorrow, and I don't think we're adequately doing that in the Caribbean.
Thank you all. I am similar to you, Marianne. My passion is education and awareness. I think that while we're here and we're talking about cybersecurity holistically, many times we find that the root cause of many of the things that we're facing is due to a lack of education and awareness, and that's at every level, at the top and at the lowest level of education. I'm going to take questions now from the audience. So if you have a question, there's a mic in the back.
So you can come right to the back. So we're going to take 2 questions. So follow me right to the back. We'll take 2 questions.
Hello, my name is Marula Haddad from the World Bank team working on the digital ecosystem and supporting the Caribbean islands and cybersecurity also in specific. So I want to take this opportunity and the hint of Colonel Sterling to show my face so that later on you know who's behind this email. But generally I would like to know from you all, what can we, as your partners, different partners in the room and also elsewhere, what can we do better to help you reach your objectives in collaboration and skills development? So I'd like to hear guidance from you on, what can we help you with and do better in that? Thank you.
So in the context of the region, we have a lot of organizations that are providing assistance. And in the context of that assistance, they seem to be functioning in separate pockets. And that is one of the things I've seen over the time. You would have groups of companies with particular agencies and they're aligned and not synchronizing with maybe more established groups. So we have us here as the forces who are actually functional. And I do not know how of these different organizations actually connect with us to say, okay, what is your experience? How can we help with the Caribbean experience? Because the culture is different. I mean, like everywhere else in the world. Culture is a thing that is akin to you, and you might think your culture is particularly unique. So that being said, the Caribbean experience is what it is. And I think some of the organizations, they don't synchronize because they are different or they are separate. They really don't come to collaborate. And because it's the same goal they're trying to achieve. If you are in a group of countries trying to achieve, let's say, incident response, I mean, the established incident response in the particular region should be a template, for want of a better word, the lessons learned to be able to deliver that product that you want to deliver in a faster way. So I think there's a need for more collaboration from these funding agencies or these external agencies to bring the region together in the context of trying to achieve what they want: cybersecurity posture, maturity, and improvement. So,
while I'm the moderator, I will add to that. I think we need to individualize the response to us. So similar to what Angus is saying, many times I find that the offerings are in scale to me. So I'm at a different level than Angus, of course, and my needs are different. So normally what happens is the offer has been given to me in a big bucket for everyone. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, while this is good, I'm not ready yet to participate. So what needs to happen is more individual conversation, if possible, so that the offerings can be scaled to not only the region, but also specifically to the country, if we are wanting to dive down and help us improve our overall posture.
From my standpoint, what we need is your voice to reach the higher stakeholders in our country as it relates to some of these initiatives. Because we can speak, but from our level, they're hearing, but they're not hearing. So, so we like to reach the highest stakeholders, and one of the things that I've observed as funding agencies approach us with assistance, it is usually assistance in the area of awareness, but what we do need is you teaching us to do it for ourselves, sort of. And I'm going back to the educational aspect. If we can realize digital transformation in the minds of our teenagers, if we can realize digital transformation in the minds of our teenagers, our young people, and we can help them to receive the best possible training to prepare them for employment in the real world, the world that is plagued with lots of cybercrime, so that they can properly and adequately secure our ICT infrastructure, that would be a big win. Because I believe that education is important, it's fundamental. And many of our teachers would also need to be upskilled to be able to pass on this training to our young people.
Quickly, Governor, would you?
Well, based on what Angus and Mariana said, the only thing I would add is that even though the Caribbean is one region, we're different peoples, and the cultural and developmental stage that each country is at necessitate that as funding agencies, you not only bring to us a solution, you engage us and develop a solution with us and then implement that. And if we do that more often than we are doing currently, we will get better results that are sustainable and replicable.
Do we have time for one more question?
Before the question, I just want to add one quick thing though. A lot of times the programs, so you would come with the funding and try to implement the program. The problem is that for implementation to be successful, you need people to deliver or to implement. And a lot of time the funding programs really doesn't cater. In some cases I have seen where they don't cater for having that resource or employed person, in essence, to continue the life of the program. If you don't have that, the program is not sustainable. We have had offers of funding, but funding without people to implement just wouldn't make sense taking the money. So at the end of the day, it's very fundamental. I don't know how, as agencies, you could tie that aspect of getting these smaller countries, especially maybe to have the resource or employ the resource to deliver and implement, whether it's 3 to 5 years or something like that built into the program. Yeah,
Okay.
that is something that could help.
Okay, I think I'm being told that we're out of time. I don't see any other questions. So thank you all so very much for joining us here on this panel. Thank you to our panelists. This has been awesome. So it is my esteemed pleasure to pretty much thank everyone for being here with us for the symposium. The good news is that the journey today does not end. We are actually going to kick off right after lunch our second event. Our second event is a regional initiative on cyber education and training brought to you with the collaboration of the OAS SIGTE, FIU, Florida International University, and NICE, which is a national initiative on cyber education. We welcome each of you to ensure that as soon as you finish your lunch, we're going to start promptly at 1:15, and we welcome